Hi everyone, and welcome to Let's Talk Solutions. And our topic for this evening is living in a chaotic world with compassion. And this topic was chosen by David Binder, who I'm going to introduce you into a moment. And this is an open discussion. Anyone can talk for up to 3 minutes at a time. And hopefully this evening we will glean some insights that individually we might not have otherwise thought of. And that's the whole point of these conversations, is to learn things from each other, to support each other. I encourage you to go out and have conversations either with people in person or on Zoom. Keep talking. Basically we set this group up so that we would encourage other people to have other conversations, including this one, if that makes any sense. Anyway, let me just hand over to David. So David, if you could please just tell us a little bit about why you chose this topic and what it means to you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Jonny. The reason I chose this topic is because, number one, we are living in a chaotic world. We can't escape that. And number two, I feel there's a lack of compassion because there's so much division that's been created between people of different mindsets. And it's interesting that we recently had a session on bridging the gap in our mindsets, because I think this is closely related, because I think there's so much judgment that's come out of what's happened over the last few years that I think compassion for many has disappeared, and I think it's important to highlight that, and also to look at, I'm all about looking at things differently and perceiving things differently, and I think compassion is now needed more than ever, because there's what I'm finding in my experience is there's a lot of people who are looking upon other people as wrong and for their choices. And because of that, I think compassion has just disappeared. And I think we all need to come together as one more than ever now. And that includes people who think in opposite directions. I think it's important that we all come together as one. Otherwise, the division is just going to create, well, it's already created a lot of tension, and I've seen people who have had 50-year friendships destroyed because of lack of compassion with each other's thinking and mindset, and that's quite sad. I try and surround myself with people who don't think like me, because otherwise I'm just going to live my life in judgment and separation, and I don't want to do that. I want to feel connected to everybody. So this is why I think this is really important.
Thank you, David. Great answer, by the way. Wow, I'm just realizing what a great talk we're going to have today. What we're going to do, I just want to introduce you to Michelle, who's co-hosting today. Michelle has chosen a reading by the Dalai Lama, and she's also going to guide us through a little meditation. But I'm just going to hand over to you, Michelle, whilst I continue letting people in.
Thanks, Jonny. Thanks. It's really good to be here. Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle, and like I said, I'm in Ireland, and I love this topic. I feel like it's going to be really juicy. There's so much to it. I wanted to just do, open up with the little body scan, because I know we're all coming from our, busy days and dinner and different things like that. So just really gentle. I'm just going to do a body scan, and you don't have to do anything except just listen to my voice and maybe bring your attention to where I'm talking about. So you can close your eyes, you don't have to. And if you just put your feet on the ground. So I just want you to notice your feet on the ground and your toes and what the ground feels like underneath your feet. And if there's any tension in your ankles, And then draw your attention to your calves, your knees and the backs of your knees, your thighs. Just notice if there's any tension in your thighs and if they need to relax. Maybe see, can you feel your clothes or the chair underneath you? And then bring your attention to your tummy, and we can hold a lot of tension in our tummy. So just, let your tummy sag, and notice the chair or the cushion behind your back and your chest and the top of your back and into your shoulders. Again, noticing if there's any tension, if you need to adjust or relax the shoulders. Notice your neck, your jaw, which again, we can hold a lot of tension or stress in our jaw, particularly our mouth and our teeth. And to let your face relax. So can you notice the air, the temperature inside your nose or your skin on your face, your hair, and the crown of your head. And if you need to just move a little bit, move your body. Or yawn, which is always a really, nice thing to allow ourselves to yawn and relax. And maybe you might notice on the topic of compassion, when you might have been compassionate to yourself today or not so compassionate, where you might have judged yourself or judged somebody else today. In the realm of compassion, what did you do well today? Was there a time where you were kind to yourself today? And you might also notice, sometimes when we're in mental clutter, our own mental clutter, just take a moment where we can just rest and relax today, in this moment. And when you're ready, you can come back into the room. Notice what's in front of you, what's behind you, to the left and to the right of you, as a way of centering. And if you want to, just hold your hand on your heart in the space of compassion, which really starts with ourselves. Okay, thanks everyone. Jonny asked me to maybe, to focus tonight and to look for a little reading, and the reading that came up, which I was drawn to, was from the Dalai Lama. And a quote that stood out for me was, love and compassion are necessities, not luxuries, and without them, humanity cannot survive. And I think that's so powerful. And he writes, from my own limited experience, I have found that the greatest degree of inner tranquility comes from the development of love and compassion. The more we care for the happiness of others, the greater our own sense of well-being becomes. Cultivating a close, warm-hearted feeling for others automatically puts the mind at ease. This helps remove whatever fears or insecurities we may have and gives us the strength to cope with any obstacles we encounter. It is the ultimate source of success in life. As long as we live in this world, we are bound to encounter problems. If at such times we lose hope and become discouraged, we diminish our ability to face difficulties. If, on the other hand, we remember that it is not just ourselves, but everyone who has to undergo suffering, this more realistic perspective will increase our determination and capacity to overcome troubles. Indeed, with this attitude, each new obstacle can be seen as yet another valuable opportunity to improve our mind. Thus, we can strive gradually to become more compassionate. That is, we can develop both genuine sympathy for others suffering and the will to help remove their pain. As a result, our own serenity and inner strength will increase. Ultimately, the reason why love and compassion bring the greatest happiness is simply that our nature cherishes them above all else. The need for love lies at the very foundation of human existence. It results from the profound interdependence we all share with one another. However capable and skillful an individual may be, left alone, he or she will not survive. However vigorous and independent one may feel during the most prosperous periods of life, when one is sick or very young or very old, one must depend on the support of others. Interdependence, of course, is a fundamental law of nature. Not only higher forms of life, but also many of the smallest insects are social beings who, without any religion, law, or education, survive by mutual cooperation based on an innate recognition of their interconnectedness. The most subtle level of material phenomena is also governed by interdependence. It is because our own human existence is so dependent on the help of others that our need for love lies at the very foundation of our existence. Therefore, we need a genuine sense of responsibility and a sincere concern for the welfare of others. Yeah, I'll leave that there because it goes on. I just think it's a lovely piece to open up with. It doesn't talk about the mental clutter, but it does definitely talk about suffering. Yeah, so we can open it up. I mean, I can share for a minute, but I think the reading said a lot. I think, you know, when I was reflecting over this topic over the last couple of days, I think for me, it comes back to, you know, first the personal mental clutter and chaos that goes on for me on a daily basis. So I think that reflecting on our personal mental chaos before we even look out to the world, and the journey of how hard it is to be compassionate. I know I find it really hard to be compassionate. I can find a lot of kindness and compassion for other people, more so than for myself. And it is a journey. I think it is a journey of the self-compassion. But for me, in helping others and being of service to others and listening to people who are open and honest allows me to have compassion for others. But in a way, it mirrors back because I realize, you know, we're all human with suffering and struggle. So there are some of the things that came to mind as I was thinking about this subject over the last few days. And I'm sure everyone else has their own thoughts. So would anyone like to take the floor for 3 minutes, Jonny, while we open the floor? Jonny, do you want to come in first?
What I realize is I haven't got a timekeeper yet. Would somebody like to do timekeeping? We're going to talk for 3 minutes at a time. Who would like to do that?
Thanks, Gail.
Thanks, Gail. So yeah, if anyone would like to come in and share their thoughts on this topic and or the reading. I'll come in and share. Thank you, Michelle. That was a really lovely reading. And while you were doing the meditation, and I just sort of put my feet on the floor, and it's just sort of reminded me of being a baby and just having little feet. And it sort of made me feel sort of nourished in a way, you know, just sort of, and it's amazing how those meditations, as soon as you start, even because that was only a minute or so, as soon as well, this is for me, as soon as I start doing a meditation, I start to sort of not like myself, but I start to sort of, what's the word? I suppose tune into myself, remind myself that I'm a human being on this planet, you know, and of course I like to think I'm trying to do good in my life. And last month, Emma was talking about meditation, and she said they did some sort of a test. They had these people who do meditation all the time, and they measure some sort of, I think it's protons. Don't quote me on this, but she said they measured them normally, and there was, I don't know, maybe 20 protons, and then they did 20 minutes really focused meditation, and there was like hundreds of thousands of protons emitting from their heart chakra or from them. So I suppose, you know, being compassionate is, for oneself, could be seen as taking the time to do a meditation and nurture oneself. And while you were reading that, Michelle, you mentioned the word interdependence. And, you know, I realize as humans, we do depend on each other. You know, if we don't have it, I mean, I certainly wouldn't like to live on the top of the mountain all on my own. I just don't think I'd last, well, I'd obviously last a few days, but it's just the last thing I would want to do. I want to be with humans. I want that human interaction. And I can't remember where I heard this, but a baby, if it doesn't get contact when it's a baby, it will literally die. And there's a medical term for it. But so we need sort of touch, we need to be hugged, we need nice friends. Yeah, and that's all I'm going to say about it at the moment. I might come back and speak a bit later.
But your time's up, so that's
good.
good.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you. Good timing. Who would like to share something next?
I can follow up next. I have spent many years enjoying the macrobiotic guideline as my philosophy direction, and one of the more central issues of that is the connection between physical and mental health. And without a healthy nervous system, we can't really feel compassion. And when you follow the macrobiotic model, we'd see that if you've got enough of personal energy, personal power, then you're able to put this excess energy into caring about others. Because when you're very sick, you have very little extra energy to give to others. You know, you're trying to survive yourself. And there's a basic model which is called the 7 levels of consciousness from Far Eastern philosophy, and macrobiotics has focused on this. Well, with these 7 levels, in the earlier phases, it's very ego-oriented. It's things like sensorial thinking, like is this feel good? Does it taste good? Is it or emotional? Like, do I like this? You know, does this like make me feel nostalgic? And then at level number 4, which is called analytical, that's when you take a step outside the ego and you begin looking at the world around you. And level number 5 is social. And it's the level of social consciousness is basically compassion, where you now have solved these issues of ego and you've got that solved. So you look beyond that and you see, how you can help others. The Buddha was called the compassionate one, and the path of the Bodhisattva was to be there for other people. And you could only do that if you had what was called virya. And virya is basically the basis of our word for virile or having vigor. And it's virya is something you have from having personal physical health, which has got lost over the years because in those days they didn't have chocolate and ice cream, so they didn't have to talk about these kind of things. But today, of course, it's an important issue. And we see that this is really what's lacking is having that kind of health basis to have a nervous system that is mature, balanced, and able to really focus on those things. So, it comes down to things as simple as amino acids, essential fatty acids, minerals, vitamins. So, it's like the daily food gives you that basis. And I've watched people through the years become much more compassionate by just improving their health. Have I reached my... Okay, well, that's perfect.
I come in after that, Stephen, because that's really interesting, because I know through my study with trauma as well that, trauma and suffering can literally change the brain. It can change the brain, it can change the way we think. So it can be really hard to be self-compassionate. Or if people are living in like survival mode, they mightn't have a lot of compassion at all. So it is, I think, you mentioned like, personal health and mental health in order to be able to, to be in acceptance or to be compassionate, because it literally can change the brain and the nervous system. So it's a really good point. And I also think as well, it's when we're looking at compassion, it's to look at like what's the opposite of compassion and where we can be in the opposite of compassion, to recognize where we might be in judgment or shame or criticism to ourselves or to others. So yeah, that's a great point, Stephen. Thanks a million. Great points. Does anyone else want to come in?
Yeah, I'll come in here. It's interesting that you've just mentioned trauma, Michelle, because I was looking online earlier and I found this, which I think is really nice. It's entitled 10 Easy Ways to Cultivate Compassion. So I'll read them out, but there's a couple of things that really struck out on me. 1, start by practicing self-compassion. 2, put yourself in someone else's shoes. 3, move beyond your self-referencing. 4, practice kindness without people-pleasing. 5, relax your judgments. 6, listen generously. 7, heal your own trauma. And 8, practice presence. And what struck me, and you've just nailed it, Michelle, is I can't do any of those things until I start to heal my own trauma. Because once I start healing my own trauma, I can then listen generously. I can then relax my judgments. I can then practice presence. I can then practice kindness. I can't do anything while I'm in pain. And I noticed this years ago when I thought I was being compassionate, but actually now I realize I wasn't being compassionate. I was actually crying out for love, and I was doing it in a way, but it looked as though I was giving love, but actually I was doing it because I needed it for myself. And it was only after now, when I look back on what I used to do, that I realized that a lot of my actions were born out of pain and suffering. I've moved through quite a bit of that pain and suffering, and now I can really start to feel true compassion. And one of the practices I'm doing every day for the next 6 months, which I've been doing as part of a Course in Miracles study group, is every time I get triggered or judge something, I just say the mantra to myself, I've created this. This is me, I've created this. This has come from my own mind and it's being reflected back to me. And when I do that, what I notice is the judgments disappear, because if I've created it, I've got no one else to blame. And sometimes that's actually frustrating because I want to blame someone, but I can't if I've created it. If I've created the scenario, can't blame anyone. And I found myself being so much more compassionate because I've realized that this is all my reality. It's all my doing. And therefore, I can't help but have compassion because no one's doing anything wrong. And now starting to see people as innocent. Thank you for the beep.
Thanks, David.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to jump in here, if I may, based on that. Personally, I feel that it's about unconditional and conditional love for me. I think that we've become, as a Western world, as a society, we've become totally focused on the individual and the non-connecting with anything or anybody else. So what happens is we become self-absorbed. We become focused on what do we want, where are we going, what are we doing, and we sort of get into this what I call wallowing, I have to say. And if we can get out of that and we can see how we connect to everyone, then you can see how you can give. Because the more you give, the more you get back. So if you don't worry about you and what you're getting, if you can, then you give and the universe brings back to you. And you have to let go of what you're getting, what's happening for you. So for me, it's not about the individual and about, me. It's about how we're connected with everything and how we give out, and we let go of what we'll get back, because we'll get it anyway. And I think that's a learning curve, I think that we all have to go through. And I think we are a little bit self-absorbed and self-obsessed personally. So I think if you get out of that, you have compassion. Compassion comes. It's not something you have to try to do. It's something that automatically comes if you open up and let go. That's just my view.
It's really interesting because it is a balance, isn't it? Because when we're energetically energetically void, we can find it hard to be compassionate with other people. And yes, we can be fed by being compassionate, but it can be a balance, I think. And also, I think it's really hard. Society is set up at the moment, especially through the lockdowns of the last 2 years, where the reading was on interdependence, where we've all been separated. Like we're at home and we're getting fed with information from the internet. We're connecting with people online. So sometimes we can be fed, but not seeing people personally, or that community can be gone. And I was listening to something where they said when the washing machine was invented and it was brought in, women got really depressed, like really, really depressed. And it was because they used to go down to the washrooms, and while the washing would be on, they'd, have a cup of tea and chat to people. Whereas now, people are in their separate houses. The community isn't as big as it once was. I know for me, I can go for a few months without seeing any neighbours. So yeah, just thinking of those two things. Sue and Maria, did you want to come in? Thanks, Gail, for sharing. That was great. You're on mute. Sue.
Can you hear me?
I can. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was interested in something that Osho comments about compassion as well. Well, things that were coming up for me was about it like it needs to be authentic, because if we're like not trying to contrive, not trying to be compassionate, and it is something that's a process, because I think that if we have other stuff coming up, we have to process that and know how to hold space for that. And then we can come back into compassion, because it's easy to be compassionate with people who are lovely. It's the things that really challenge us, that's where the challenge is, to be able to be compassionate, and also not wanting to kind of slip into being some kind of people pleasing martyr, or those kinds of things that we could slip into as well. And one thing that Osho said was that passion is the seed and compassion is the flowering, and that it's like a higher level of love where there's nothing. It's not about. There's nothing self-conscious. There's nothing calculated about it. It's not sentimental. It's not intellectual. It's not emotional. It's not emotional. It's actually about compassionate action. And it's like it's something that comes through us rather than it being us deciding to be compassionate. So we're like it's like a bridge to God for compassion to flow through us, so that we actually just move. It's like it's something that just happens, rather than it being like he sort of says kindness has a bit more of a contrived side to it, whereas compassion is just something that just flows through us from God. So it's not ours, and we're not looking for a thank you or respect or any kind of ego trip for the fact that we've managed to be compassionate. You know, there's all kinds of things we can trip over on the way in our own humanness, you know. And sometimes I practice the Ho'oponopono. I find that really helpful, which kind of ties in with the idea of we kind of create situations. So I think that can be really helpful, the Ho'oponopono. Osho says meditation is the way to find yourself to compassion, you know. But I just thought there were just some points I wanted to throw into the mix. Thank you.
Thanks, Sue. Laura, did you want to come in next?
Okay, right.
You're gone on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Mm-hmm.
Can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, again, right, okay. Yeah, two things were game changers for me, and that was Louise L. Hay's You Can Heal Your Life, and I think a lot of people have to forgive their childhood first before they can kind of move on as an adult, and I think her words, "We're all victims of victims," really resonated. So therefore you have to kind of stop blaming your family for the start of your problems, because they're victims of victims. And but having understood that, and obviously that ties in with the Philip Larkin poem, they fuck you up, your mum and dad, they may not mean to, but they do. So basically, I think one has to deal with the early stuff before one can move on in life, because I think people do carry on nursing those childhood hurts throughout their lives, and that impacts on their ability to feel compassion for other people. And also the other thing that was a game changer was discovering the law of attraction, and realizing that you know, we spend most of our lives worrying, thinking about what we don't want rather than thinking about what we do want. And also energetically, worry is praying for what you don't want. So I learned to let go of worry a lot, and that freed up energy to think about other people more. But getting back to what Gail said about, we're kind of programmed to be selfish, to be honest, because the more we think about ourselves and we're encouraged to only talk about our own personal issues, basically, so we don't think about what's going on in the world and we don't discuss that. So there's definitely an encouragement to be selfish, and obviously through the lockdowns and so on, people were really encouraged to isolate from each other and to stop seeing certain people as human anymore and all that sort of stuff. So I think we have to be aware of the societal pressure pushing us in that direction to become navel gazers. And yeah, I'm sure we all alternate between a stiff upper lip and a wobbly lower one, because, you know, part of me thinks I'm British, I have a stiff upper lip, and obviously the other part of me has its moments. But I think there's a lot to be said for trying to have a stiff upper lip, and also realizing a lot of what goes on in life is actually in our heads. And ultimately, other people don't give a shit. We're the ones who worry about how we're perceived and what people think of us. And actually, other people don't care, which is kind of, for the really self-obsessed, that might be depressing, but it's also a freedom that you don't actually have to worry about what other people think. And you can be free to be yourself, and you can be free to give your energy to worthwhile endeavors and worthwhile people. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting that the coronavirus thing has really kind of brought everything to the surface in terms of how we treat each other and how we think about each other, and humanity. What is a human? What direction are we headed in terms of transhumanisms, and so on? And some people obviously have got sucked into the debate about, are you still 100% human if you've had the you know what, or which is a dangerous path to go down, because again, that feeds into programming. And I think we have to realize that we've been programmed and we've been trained in really unhealthy ways, and we've got to unprogram ourselves and relearn a hell of a lot of stuff that made us wrong-headed, actually.
Your time's up.
Get back to our sovereign, reclaim our sovereign selves. Sorry, I've run out of time.
Sorry.
Sorry. Cassie-Anne, were you asking a question about the poem that Laura referred to?
Sorry, yes, if you could repeat it, because I couldn't understand it.
The one that Laura mentioned?
Yeah, it's called Philip. It's by Philip Larkin, and the first line is, they fuck you up, your mum and dad. They may not mean to, but they do. They give you all the faults they had and add some extra just for you. But they were fucked up in their turn by fools in old style hats and coats who, I'm sorry, I forget how the rest of it goes. I'll try and share it on the chat. I'll try and copy and paste it into the chat if that's helpful. But it's quite a clever poem. It was one of the early sort of attempts at being a psychological poem, I think.
Thanks, Laura.
May I have a go? It's been really interesting listening to everyone. I'm very, very inspired by everyone's sharing of their knowledge. Honestly, I don't really know what to say, except that and whatever it's selfish or not, but I'm going through a situation now with having to deal with my husband who had a burnout, and I feel that compassion is sometimes really hard, because I kind of mix it up with my own needs. So it's difficult for me to really be compassionate, because I kind of notice that some other, for example, impatience and just generally some feelings of frustration come up for me. So it's difficult to put it in practice with my own husband, who lives with me in this delicate moment of his life where he's just decided to leave his work and kind of, you know, rest and find out what he's capable of carrying on doing with his life. But yeah, I just wanted to share that. I guess I don't have anything else very profound to share at the moment, so I'll just stop there.
Thanks, Cassie-Anne. Lucia, do you want to come in?
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you to everyone who's shared so far. I can. I'm really grateful to learn that from your experience, that compassion is a skill that can be learned. It is definitely not one of my assets, but it's something that I am learning to practice. And talking about ego and talking about selfishness, to start with, is compassion is a sentiment that I need to use in order to protect myself from resentment, which ultimately is very harmful to me. There are many situations in which we can always find, like David said, I have created this, I have a part in this. Sometimes though we haven't, and the only way to prevent myself from becoming resentful towards a situation or an institution or a person is to have compassion and to think, yes, they're victims like me, like everybody else. And it is an exercise that it was very, very hard to begin with, but it's something that pays off. And I know that it sounds selfish to think that I'm using this for my own benefit, but ultimately, I'm hoping, and I'm sure that I'm getting there, that it will become part of my process thinking automatically, and it will be, or maybe already is to a certain extent, beneficial to the life of others. At least I don't have a confrontation, or I don't speak my mind anymore, because, so that is an improvement. I hope I'm making sense. I feel very safe here, and I don't feel judged, and I'm liking everything I'm hearing. And thank you very much for having me and letting me share.
Thanks, Lucia. Would anyone else like to come in? Eileen, do you want to Grace, you're unmuted.
Yeah, I'm sort of, as I'm listening to it all, it's like we're talking about something that's over there, compassion. And I'm just wondering, how do we actually feel compassion? Where in the body does it come from? How, and obviously the heart comes to mind. And what exactly is it that we're doing when we're having compassion? I don't know, I'm kind of pondering on it, because it is a subject that we talk a lot about having compassion, but there are times when, I don't know about anyone else, but sometimes my heart in defense closes up and I can't feel anything, and that's difficult. And then when you're dealing with someone who's going through their own trauma, it's very hard to, especially if you're living with them or anything like that, it's very hard to keep feeling compassion. And I suppose you have to find some time where you give yourself compassion, because without that, you're just getting triggered. And the thing is, for me, is the reason that people aren't compassionate is because we've been programmed not to like ourselves. It's been going on all our life. And that's what's come clear to me throughout this period of time, is that how much we're sold things on the basis of that we're inadequate, that these things are going to make us happy. When in fact, I know that what makes me happy is when I feel connected with someone, and there's a flow, and there's a, I don't even have the words to describe it, but I did start writing a list using sort of the letters of compassion. So, and there was a couple of letters, maybe someone else could fill them in for me, but some of the words I got was cherish, openness, mutual, presence, alert, sorrow, soft, in love. And then I couldn't find an O or an N. and then I've got beloved at there, but that's not part of the word.
Nurture.
Nurture. Thank you. Thank you. Yes, it's so, and it's all about the heart, really. It's all about us connecting through the energy of our hearts with each other and being able to hold our presence with that. I'm sorry, I've left the phone on. Yeah. It would go when I'm sort of talking, wouldn't it? Anyway, yeah, I think I just wanted to throw something in the mix and to see if we could come up with what we mean when we say compassion, because it's just a word, really, unless you sort of
time's up,
unless you actually feel it in your body. Is that my time up?
Your time's up, yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Eileen.
Thank you.
Jonny, I know you want to come in, but I wanted to respond on that, because I think for me the missing, like we can talk about compassion, but the missing part for me in this topic is in a chaotic world, and I think I think compassion, I can get on my high horse with compassion. I can be like, oh, I can like give myself and be kind to people and want to fix people, and I know when I'm in that space, I'm gone into ego, and it's not very healthy waters for me to be in. I think for me, in that acceptance that we are in a world that is hard, that there is a lot of suffering, that we can have personal suffering on a daily basis. And the world is hard, it's hard to be compassionate to governments or that are making decisions for us, or if we're being hurt around things, or if we're burnt out from looking after people. So I think for me it's recognizing the dark and the light, and recognizing where I can be in judgment of myself, judgment of others, criticism of myself, criticism of others, where I can go into fear, where I can go into shame. And Eileen, you were asking about the question of compassion, even when our hearts are closed, that we can still have compassion that our hearts are closed, that we can, in a space of utter acceptance. I think that for me is like utter acceptance of this is how I am today, learning what I'm learning today, or looking at how the world is when I feel a little bit not in control, or there's things going on in the world that are scary, or I'm not happy about. It's that, like, pure acceptance. So yeah, I think for me it's the chaos that can go on in my own mind, in the world, in society, and also that it's like unpicking as well the messages that we have been brought up with, unpicking the busyness of society at the moment, or the standards that we might have personally or in society. So yeah, they're great questions. Thanks, Eileen. Jonny, did you want to come in?
Yes. Yes, thanks, Michelle. So great to see everyone, and so great to hear everyone. I must admit, when this topic was sort of suggested, it didn't really resonate with me, because I don't know, it just didn't. But listening to everybody, I'm just reminded of the humanity that I really enjoy and crave, especially over the last 2 years when we've been, at the moment in England, we don't have any restrictions, so we're getting on life as normal. But there have been disruptions, as you'll know, and I just want to big it up for One World Festival, which I've been going to since 2011, which was created by Maria and Juan. Maria's on the call today, and I was invited there in 2011 to be part of the pantomime, and that was all great and everything. And I really didn't know what to make. I'm going to a festival, and I wasn't really a festival type of person. but I met all these amazing, humble people, and I just felt so sort of connected to everybody. And as time is going on in my life at the moment, I just want to be in one world all the time. And obviously that's a festival that lasts a week, but that type of community. I went camping last year on a festival, and I really wasn't sure if I was able to camp for a whole week in England, but I did. I sort of rewilded myself, and I brought my warmest duvet with me, and it was okay. And it dropped to it dropped to about 10 degrees one night. And I survived, and I thrived, in fact. And for me, I guess an act of compassion, is like an act of love. It's something I do to give myself. Well, that was a gift to myself. And, you know, giving myself a gift is sometimes hard because I feel I must try to do to get somewhere. And I've recently had a bit of an epiphany because I have been trying too hard, and it doesn't really work for me. So I suppose an act of self-love and compassion for me is to try a lot less and just really relax into being me. And I saw an amazing quote. I can't remember who said it, but he said, "You cannot possibly fail at being yourself." And I think I spoke to you about this, Michelle, and did you say actually you can if you're trying to be somebody else's version of yourself?
Time's up. Sorry.
Thank you, Gail. I realise I'm going on too much, but
no, it's fine. It's fine.
Yes. So next person, please.
Thanks, Jonny. Ricky, do you want to come in?
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Well, before the first lockdown, I was taking quite a lot of photographs of homeless people because I was finding it really disgusting that there were so many people living on the street in so many empty properties. And one day I was somewhere, I think I was in London, and a young guy was literally in tears. He was saying, "I'm absolutely freezing and have anywhere to stay tonight." And I went to the bank machine and I gave him 25 quid, I think. And I was really pleased that I did, but I don't always do that. So I asked the question of myself, is compassion a feeling, or is compassion an act, or is it a combination of the two things? And I can't actually answer that question, but it was interesting that somebody mentioned earlier on, they fuck you up, your mum and dad.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ricky. There's this really weird noise.
Is there?
You're the only person who's got a mic on. I don't know what it is, but it's.
I don't know what it is, unless it's something to do with these wires attached to my. No, it's not. I can't.
Okay. All right. Well, let's just carry on.
Yeah. Is it okay? And so I tend to record things I see around me because I've worked in the arts all my life, and in doing this I see certain aspects of life and I put them into a perspective. I put them into the framework within which I live. So here's a little lyric for you. It's something I heard probably 30 years ago, and it goes like this. If the sons of company directors and judges' private daughters had to go to school in a slum school, dumped by some joker in a damp back alley, had to herd into classrooms cramped with worry, with a view onto slag heaps and stagnant pools, had to file through corridors grey with age and play in a crackpot concrete cage, buttons would be pressed, rules would be broken, strings would be pulled, and magic words spoken. Invisible fingers would mould palaces of gold. That's half of a song by a guy called Leon Rosselson. And I heard that, as I said, probably about 30 years ago, and I haven't ever forgotten it. I just had to look it up because I also know the other lines. They fuck you up, your mum and dad. There are things that we can't control.
Thanks, Ricky. Thanks a million. So I was wondering, because this is a conversation, you know, about solutions as well, and I was wondering, is there anyone struggling with not being able to be compassionate or struggling with the, you know, chaotic world at the moment, or that they're struggling to see some hope or a solution with different things?
The thing I find, is it okay for me to talk?
Yeah, Ricky, go first.
The thing I find extremely hard is I believe that we will all experience trauma at some point in our lives, whether it be physical or emotional or intellectual. It's and I'm finding that because we have access to so much more through social media, these things have been happening all the time ever since the Middle Ages and beyond. But now we see more of these things and address them through screens, and that's a real worry, because the media has complete control over almost all of our lives, and it started a long time ago, and it's still going on now, and it's getting progressively worse and worse. And the stuff I see happening with the Ukrainians, I find that I have a really, really strong impulse to try to do something about it, and yet I feel powerless, because this is a question of action, and I'm not in a position to take dramatic physical action to solve the problem.
Thanks, Ricky.
Yeah.
I had a family member a few years ago when the Syrian refugees were coming into Ireland, and it was my mother actually who said, I really want to work with the refugees, but I can't get into them. They're locked in a space in the town, and you know, outside people can't get into them. And I always remember her saying that. And over the last 2 years, she was introduced to a Syrian refugee, and she mentored her into writing her book. And now the book is being released. And I always, that kind of strikes me in that she was really powerless, you know, compassionate and powerless, but was brought to something else over the last few years in an artistic capacity. I just kind of jogged my memory, because I think what you said about the compassion in the balance of action and the balance of, you know, compassion, like what is it and what can we do in that action, but also recognizing where we might be powerless in it. So I think sometimes we are brought to it when we're open, in the same way, you know, your story about the homeless man. There was no thinking behind that. You were able to just take that action on the day, which came from compassion. So yeah, that really touched me. And thanks, Ricky, for sharing. Laura, did you want to come in?
I just want to jump in there. Sorry if I may. Sorry, Laura, you go first.
I was just going to say, I came across a really good quote the other day. It was a meme, actually. And if you don't heal, you bleed on those who didn't cut you. And I just thought that was really, really powerful. So that's all I was going to share.
That's very good. I just want to jump in there because I want to switch it a little bit. I personally don't feel powerless, and I don't think we are powerless. I think we are powerful, and I think we have to focus on being powerful. And I think that one of the things that we all need to do is we need to you know, go inside and build ourselves. We have to love ourselves, nurture ourselves, and you build up your sovereignty, your power. Once you do that, you have the ability to go out and love others more so than you could before. So that's what compassion for me is all about. For me, it's about standing in my power, which gives me much more power to do other things. And I think, you know, the world is chaotic. It will always be chaotic on a certain level. But the way we can change it is by simple things like the ripple effect. What you can do is you can, when you drop the stone in, you see the ripples. That's what you do. You love your neighbor, or you help your community, or you do things around you, and that ripples out. And that rippling out has effect on the world. And if you keep your vibration up and your positivity up, that ripples out too. So don't try to change the whole world, just change the bit you're in. Affect your own life and stand in your power. And if you stand in your power, you can do anything you want. Nothing will faze you. I guarantee it.
Thanks, Gail. Jonny, did you have your hand up again?
I did, yes. Yeah, wow, thanks everyone. It's interesting. I was just thinking, you know, I'm the first person in my family to sort of enter into the world of self-development. So when I was 26, I got sober and stopped drinking and taking drugs. And I went to 12-step programs for 30 odd years, and also started reading self-help books. And sometimes I get a bit resentful. I just think, God, why am I the only person who's like trying to do something? I mean, my brother did attend Landmark, but hasn't really done much else. But when I think about my parents, they were sort of born in the 50s and the 40s actually, 38 and 40. And they're just such a different generation that I think the whole sort of modality for them was to work hard and look after the family, and that's how it was. And now it just feels for me like we're in an expansive new world, and we really do need to go within and really do need to find our truth and share that with others, or try and include others somehow. And I suppose that's why I started these talks, because I felt, I mean, I've been feeling for months, we just need to be talking. You know, if we're talking, then hopefully we're in the solution, which is why these talks are focused on the solution. I don't know if I'm making any sense anymore, but yeah, I think, yeah, I'll just leave it there because I see other people want to come in and talk. So thank you. Stephen, do you want to go ahead?
Can't hear you.
You're muted, Stephen.
Yeah, okay. I would like to comment on what Gail just said. I thought that was a very good extension of what I mentioned with the 7 levels of judgment from the Far Eastern model, that's saying that we first of all create this balance in ourselves, which is the lower levels of judgment, 2 and 3, and the ego related. And then when we have those lower levels in order, then we have that personal power to go out and engage at the social level and have that ripple effect. And at the same time, I thought that was very good what Ricky said, and that is the powerlessness because of the the magnitude of the problems we have going on now just dwarf us and what we can do. Just today it came out that the Russian bombers and aircraft that came in over Swedish airspace 3 weeks ago had nuclear weapons on them. They came in, and we had 2 days later, we had the first air raid siren drills here in Stockholm, and it was a very eerie feeling to have this air raid siren going off. At the same time, the Ukraine is the breadbasket of the world. We're going to have mass hunger because of what's going on there now. The third world is going to just go under. And so I really agree with Ricky there that there's this very frustrating feeling of powerlessness. So all you can do is, like what Gail said, is to just do what we can in our limited ability.
So I'd like to respond to what you just said, because whilst we can stand in our own power, which I agree with, incidentally, what I generally do is I make statements and I write stuff and I write songs and I take action in a particular way to share specific ideas. But to come back to what I was speaking about earlier, is it a feeling or is it an action? Because half of me thinks, why aren't we there? Why am I not there actually helping people in some way? And the answer is obvious to me, because it's absolutely bloody terrifying. And I could quite easily get on a plane and go over and help people. But I have a young daughter who I want to see grow up, and I want to look after her. And I have other sons, and so I don't do it. So I have to find other means of being involved. But the problem is that we don't know the whole story. We only know fragments of information, because film is made of fragments and images. It's actually fractured truths that we receive all the time. This has been going on for centuries, since the first drawings in Lascaux on the caves. What's real and what's in the shadows? That's all I have to say.
Thanks, Ricky. Eileen.
There, I'm unmuted. I'm going back a bit, but I think there's this thing about keeping our vibes high, but actually part of the journey, I believe, is actually also accepting the shadow side of yourself and giving that compassion as well, that it isn't something we get rid of. It is still part of our energy, and to accept that who you are includes that, and you can change how you use that energy. So yeah, but I also go along with what the guy who just spoke said, is that we don't really know what the truth is. It's very hard for us to, because at the moment there's this big thing about Ukraine, and I've heard lots of different stories about it and different angles. So it's really hard to know what to really believe. And I think the war's being manufactured to bring in sort of, digital money, so they can control us even more. But I also think we need to stand in our sovereignty. I think that's a really powerful thing. And in doing that, we can find more compassion. And you asked a question earlier about anyone who's struggling. Well, I think everyone's struggling at the moment, because if I think of all the people that are suffering in this world from things like adverse effects, never mind what existed before that, like starving children and torture and all sorts of things, then, it's a really difficult world to be in. And we really need the connection and the love with those that we can reach. And there's obviously a limit to how much we can do, but standing in our power and saying no to those who are trying to control this world is the best any of us can do. And whilst doing that, not being divided by the many ways in which they've devised to divide us as well. So it's about having awareness and keeping your compassion for everyone, not just for those that are sort of on your side, if you know what I mean, or who think the same way as you or whatever. But yeah, so I think that's me.
Thanks, Eileen. David, do you want to come in?
Yeah, one of the things I know Jonny is very keen on this calls like this is talking about solutions. So I have a personal solution to keep my compassion high. And one of the things that studying A Course in Miracles has really helped with is to see life in a very simplistic way, in that what anyone is ever doing is born out of one or two things, either out of love or a call for love. So if I see so-called evil, which I don't see it as evil, I just see people playing roles in a big play. I see the world as a big play, and everyone's playing a role. Everyone's an actor in that play, and those actors I see as either calling for love or being love. So this started with my father, because I had a really challenging and tough upbringing as a kid, and I was very unloved by my dad. Having done a lot of work on my dad, I now see what he did is he played a role in my life, because I recognized that I came into this world with a particular set of wounds that he played a great role in surfacing those wounds for me. So I now see that his actions were born out of a call for love. My reactions to his actions were also born out of a call for love. And we're all playing roles. And so I try and look at life now through the lens of forgiveness, in terms of people just screaming out for love. And that could be the Russians, it could be Putin, it could be people who get vaccinated. It doesn't really matter what the form is. We're all playing roles. So I just look at life like that everyone's playing a role, and we can choose to view that role and act and respond accordingly.
Thank you, Dave.
Good.
Very interesting talk so far. I was just reminded of the quote from Ram Dass, "We're all just walking each other home." And when I think of that, it really softens my attitude and my heart towards people. I just think, yeah, we are. We're just walking each other home. Let's make it a nice walk. Let's hold hands. Let's love people and be caring. And unfortunately, we share the world with a few psychopaths who are just trying to fuck things up for us. Excuse my French. I don't generally like to swear in public, especially on a talk about compassion, but, you know, it's kind of a reality. So now I feel a bit embarrassed that I said that, but I will forgive myself. At least I didn't slap anybody. I won't open that topic up. Next person, please.
And Ricky, you're muted.
I'll try again. Can you hear me? I'd like to respond to the comment before from Dave. So I used to be an acting teacher for quite a long time, and I used to teach in quite a few of the drama schools in London. And there is this system that we used to teach called the Stanislavski system. And that, the heart of it is the idea of, in the world of a specific story, characters have specific objectives, but the questions that you have to ask of them is, what do they want, or what do they think they want, and what do they really need? So on anyone's journey, you may be pursuing an illusion, so something or someone who you believe you should be, something that you think you should be doing, whereas in fact you may need something entirely different. And a whole system of acting is actually grounded in those two simple ideas. So I just wanted to throw that into your, okay, in relation to what you said.
Thanks, Ricky. So we've only a few minutes left, and does anyone want to come in with some last comments?
I just have one different perspective that I'd like to throw in, which is I believe that we choose our parents before we get here. And I see the world that we live in as like a school. So I think we come here to learn lessons and to go through whatever, and we have choices. And I think we're all striving for it all to be perfect, and we'd love it to be perfect, but if it was perfect, we wouldn't be here. So I think the whole point of us going through what we go through is that we're supposed to be learning something, whatever that may be, and I think that's okay. I think it's okay that we have ups and downs. It's okay that we don't always work it out, or we don't always you know, love everyone, or we're not always compassionate. I think we just have to be okay with it. We have to accept it. And then when we accept that, then we can move on to being a bit more compassionate. But I think, you know, looking at the, oh, we're victims, and so this is bad and this is good. I think we just have to go through the learning curve. And it's a learning curve, and it will always be. And I'm probably older than all of you. So I can speak from experience that it is a learning curve, but you just have to sit with it, accept it, deal with it, move on from it. And then you go to the next one. But that's how life is. It's, you know, we're not going to get to, we might get to a fabulous plateau, and hopefully we will, but I do think that this is part of the journey. And I think sometimes we just have to sit with it and be okay with it.
I wouldn't agree with that entirely. I think we have to think about where we're focusing and where we're sending our energy, because that's what we're going to manifest. So if we stay sort of and just accept what's happening, then we're not actually looking for the best. And I also believe that we all need to learn to live in love and to be with each other, because I think we are meant to be living in love and joy. And when I go to One World Festival, that is how I feel. Like Jonny said, I think it's about that, being in community, not being judged, and being accepted for who you are. And then that's when we can truly shine. That's when we can truly
totally. But that's how you get there.
I think you have to accept that for me, I think we're in a matrix, and that we have been for centuries, and that, you know, we have to say no. We do have to stand and say no, not just accept what they're telling us to do. That's what I mean is, you know, accept ourselves and accept other people as they are, but not to accept what's being put upon us.
No, I didn't mean that. Yeah. What I meant was you have to accept your feeling of when you're feeling down, or when you're not feeling compassion.
I want to know how old you are, because I want to know how old you are as well.
Eileen, we're drifting a bit off the topic.
Okay, I'm 67.
Eileen,
I'm older than you.
We've only got a couple of minutes left. It's okay to have different opinions. I was having a chat with Jamie, who couldn't make it on the call today, and I started by mistake, shouldn't have done it, talking about Will Smith and the slap. And he had a different opinion to me, and we talked about it. We debated it for a while. And I just had to think, he's got a different opinion. It's okay. And we're still friends. I would just like to say thank you so much for everyone who's been here, is here today, and has shared and who's listened. And many of the things that people have said have just hold on a second. There we go. Many of the things that people have said have just really, I've just sort of sank a little bit in sort of gratitude, just be like, oh, that's nice. It's just so nourishing. And yeah, I'm going to watch this back because I can't remember it all and I can't process it all. But we've got a record of this here now. So we can watch it. It's a resource. Please share it with other people. I'll put it on the Facebook group. I'll put it on YouTube if you're not on Facebook. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. Michelle, did you have any closing thoughts?
I'm just so grateful. I think for me, these conversations are really rich, and I always come and hear something that really resonates, or something that I didn't think about before, or just a different angle to it. So I just feel really grateful for this conversation tonight. I feel like there was a lot of richness about it, and for me, the solution, on an individual level, on a personal level, and in the community level and in a wider level, only comes when we recognize that there can be a problem, and that there is always a solution, because it's like any addict, reaching their rock bottom. On a societal level, we can reach a rock bottom. On a world level, we can reach a rock bottom, and it is a way to awaken us to something else, or to come together. And for me, I'm just seeing the humanity of people coming together to grow food, or to plant trees, and green spaces that are taking in homeless people or Ukrainians. And that, for me, I can get bogged down when I look at all the problems in the world, and then I just have to look a different direction to see humanity and compassion. So it's been really great tonight. Thank you, everyone who's contributed.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thanks so much.
Okay, everyone. Great to see you. Thank you so much for coming. Hold on a second. Yeah, always a privilege, and you're all a big part of helping me, and hopefully we're all helping each other on this journey back to wherever we came from, as Ram Dass says. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much. And we'll see you next month when we talk about something completely different.